Welcome to another episode of Think Mighty, a video series and podcast for active lifestyle and outdoor brands, where we interview marketers, founders, and entrepreneurs on their growth strategies. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube or follow along wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Let's get into the episode. Hey, welcome to the show, Will.
Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, man. I'm glad to have you on. I've definitely been following what you've been doing with Sorter for some time, so I'm excited to talk more about it.
Great, likewise.
Awesome. So let's start off. Just tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Sure. Hey, I'm Will Balance. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Sorter. We are a software startup that makes neuromarketing easy for digital teams.
Very cool. So how did you get into doing this? How did Sorter come about?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for context, it might be useful to describe what neuromarketing is at a high level. I'm sure we'll go into some detail later on. But so neuromarketing is the combination of neuroscience, psychology, and marketing. And what we're doing is looking for indicators of how someone thinks when they're in a marketing funnel or making a buying decision. And then based on that, recommending different types of marketing actions for that individual customer. And we came to this problem because I experienced this in my past life. There was a historic women's college in Virginia, Sweetbriar College, which I was affiliated with, that announced they were closing. So I wanted to help them. These were our friends. And I launched a series of campaigns to help raise awareness and funding for Sweetbriar, which resulted in various press. And the school was ultimately saved largely by a very passionate base of alumni for the school. While that was happening, though, I saw this inefficiency in how schools were collecting and engaging with young alumni. And like anyone else, I quit my job and I launched an app trying to optimize that and sell this product to schools. But it was incredibly challenging to get traction in the education market for a number of reasons. But one of the ones I really isolated was that the type of buyer I was speaking to was vastly different than the buyers I was used to when I was in e-commerce or when I was selling marketing software to online entrepreneurs and online marketers. And I thought, well, what if we could segment our CRM of potential school prospects and target the school administrators that were more visionary, more open to being the first person to try something. And we had some success with people that were like that, but we found them just by chance. And I thought if I could systematize that, that could be very powerful, and do different drip campaigns based on the personality type of the school administrator. There was some interesting research coming out at the time that I dove into. And long story short, we just decided that was a much larger way to help people, was to launch a product that would help a marketer of any sophistication level use neuromarketing very easily. But it started with me just wanting to sell more of my alumni product to schools.
That's awesome. So neuromarketing, I mean, that's definitely like a very scientific thing. Probably not something that a lot of small, medium, even large brands are capable of doing. Talk a little bit about what is neuromarketing? How do you guys approach that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And you're right, neuromarketing is inaccessible to the vast majority of marketers that are out there. It is being done at some larger organizations, but very medical based, very scientific based, and they have to bring in consultants and lots of expensive equipment to do neuromarketing studies. And what those are currently, EEGs or brainwave monitors, pupil dilation monitors, and other devices to a focus group. They'll show them an advertisement, for example, a commercial, and they'll monitor when does the focus group become interested or disinterested. And they'll use that by monitoring the neurological response to that ad stimuli. As you can imagine, that's not very scalable. It's also very expensive, and most people aren't going to be able to implement it. So our objective is to democratize that and make it super simple for a marketer of any sophistication level to implement the same principles that go into neuromarketing, but do it at scale and within their online store or their CRM or whatever other tools that they're using. We're doing that by taking a personality-based approach. For context, the personality is derived from what's known as the Big Five, or the OCEAN acronym, which stands for openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So what Sorter does is we look for indicators of personality in a marketing list. So we combine a company's first-party data with third-party data in the marketplace or from social media, biographical data, et cetera, to determine how is someone likely to be on a psychological or personality level. So we look to see, are they action-oriented? Are they vision-oriented? Are they people-oriented? Or are they data-oriented? And based on which one of those primary categories you fall into, you're going to respond at the neurological level. And we help the marketer determine at scale what their audience breakdown is. Are you mostly analytical thinkers? Or are you more high-level visionaries on your audience? And then speak to those segments differently based on how their brain wants to be spoken to.
That's pretty in-depth. I'm sure way more in-depth than many of us have ever thought or attempted to segment our audiences.
We think that currently segmentation is largely done at the persona level. But within those personas, there are still different ways that people in that persona think. Some people are very action-oriented. We call those movers. Other ones, they're just very analytical. They want to know all the details. We call them thinkers. So we see Sorter as where the marketer should start. They should start with the brain. It's the core of what makes us us. Add the persona layers on top of it. So you could do your analytical thinkers who are also people that like to hike and shop at Whole Foods. That persona can still exist, but you want to start with this underlying psychological layer. That's our approach to it.
That's very cool. Another podcast episode we recorded recently was around customer journey retargeting, and that led into personalization. So it seems like that's kind of what a marketer could get from you guys. Obviously, there's the whole like psychological aspect of it, but really the capability you're delivering is that personalization specific to an individual.
That's right. We want to take personalization to a new level, and we have lots of ideas around how this technology can scale out to make very individualized and very personalized experiences. And I think the consumer now is in many ways demanding a more personalized experience. I mean, people say they don't love ads, but at the same time, when you're shown an ad on Instagram that actually resonates with you and solves the pain point you're looking for, people do appreciate that. And that's how a lot of the economy is made up of, by finding a product through some sort of advertisement. And right now, personalization is very high level and largely based on demographics. So for example, they'll show different products to men versus women or based on your age. And we think that's useful, but we want to take it one step further and help adjust how that content is presented to make it very easy to understand for the consumer and very subconsciously resonant with them so they have the best experience possible.
That's awesome. So it sounds like what you guys are doing is, you're really making it personalized, which in turn makes a better customer experience. So, do you think that brands could use Sorter to really just improve their overall customer experience?
Absolutely. I think a positive ROI from a conversion standpoint or a lifetime value standpoint of the shopper, the end goal is to make the customer experience better and the customer happier. And if they enjoy your brand and they resonate with your brand, then they're going to come back. They're going to have a very good experience. And that's what we're really aiming to do. I really experienced a lot of this in my background in e-commerce. And when I first got into e-commerce, the idea of segmentation, even at a basic level, was pretty new. Never forget that one time we had a customer write in, he kept receiving products in his emails that were in general, more targeted to women, and he was a male. We were selling various services. That was a big light bulb moment for me several years ago, that this guy's experience would be way better if the content he received was just more tailored to him. And at the time, even segmentation by male or female was not really done. So it was kind of new. And we think now with the amount of data that's out there and the data that is involved in the marketing process, we can make every touch point with the customer as resonant and as positive as possible. And neuromarketing is the ability to do that.
That's a great point. Everyone says, oh, I don't like ads, or they don't think they bring value to them. But I actually like what you guys are doing from a consumer standpoint, because that means hopefully in a perfect world in the future, I'll only see ads that I care about, which will make the overall experience better.
Yeah, absolutely. And, not just seeing ads that you care about, but seeing ads that are designed just for you. There's something in neuroscience known as cognitive load. And it's essentially at a high level, some people can receive more information than others without getting overwhelmed or overstimulated. So as a basic example, if you're a marketer and you're sending a really long form landing page with lots of dense content to someone that's brain's not going to be able to handle that, they're going to have a bad experience. They're going to bounce. So just adjusting the copywriting or the way the ad or the landing page is presented to really appeal to how someone thinks through data or thinks through a buying decision not only gives a better targeted ad, but a better experience, which makes it more likely they're going to convert. So on one hand, it's very, very positive for the business. They're going to have a much better experience with that engagement with the brand. So we really see it as providing value, not just on the business side, but providing a lot of value to the actual consumer because their internet experience becomes more subconsciously beautiful, if you will.
Very cool. So what are some of the indicators that you guys kind of look at when you're making these types of, psychological neuromarketing decisions?
Absolutely. So without going too much into the proprietary part that we're doing, there are a lot of indicators that people put out about themselves, which are very telling of who they are and how they think. Something as basic as their social media presence or how active they are, what types of words they use is very interesting to us, along with other types of data like their overall biographical data, demographic data. These are all data points that we're looking at. Again, we focus around action, vision, people, and data. In our platform, we call our personas movers who are action-oriented, motivators who are vision-oriented, collaborators who are people-oriented, and thinkers who are data-oriented. So based on your precise makeup of data, you're going to fall onto one of those spectrums. In reality, people think through a buying decision in those four quadrants. There's something known as the Herrmann Brain Dominance Instrument, which I was exposed to several years ago and became fascinated with. And it essentially says people think through a decision within those four quadrants, and you go into all of those quadrants when you think through something. But everyone has the quadrant they go into first, into the highest magnitude, and that's really the one that we are really focused on optimizing the marketing messaging around. So these small tweaks can have a really large impact on the frequency of conversion and the ultimate buying from the customer.
Very interesting. So you mentioned that you have the four buckets of types of buyers. Does that change based on the type of brand and their database, their customers? Talk about that.
That's good. That's a good question. So the four categories that we sort people into, again, are the movers who are action-oriented, the motivators who are vision-oriented, the collaborators who are people-oriented, and the thinkers who are data-oriented. And that goes back to that decision-making dominance we talked about earlier. So people generally think through a decision in those four quadrants: action, vision, people, and data. For now, we wanted to keep it to these four categories to make it very easy for a marketer to implement neuromarketing. You can imagine already you have to now create additional campaigns. And while the effectiveness is there, we don't want to overwhelm the marketer. We think moving forward, as Sorter gets more intelligent and becomes more automated and the recommendations become more automated, those segments can become much more broad. And by broad, I mean there's more segments, but they also get more precise. So for example, you can start layering on other types of data to get more and more personal. So there may not always be four segments, but it will always be simple for the marketer to implement.
Nice. So somebody that could use Sorter, how dependent are you on their owned database versus what your platform may source from other databases?
That's a great question. And that was really important to us as we were architecting our data pipeline. The more data they have, the better. If they have even something as simple as a first name or last name, that's helpful. But we architected our platform to be immediately useful to anybody as long as they have an email address. So we need nothing more to make a prediction from the actual marketer than the email address or their email list. So for the marketer, they would put their email list in the sorter, and then whatever data they don't have, we go find it. And we aggregate that and then make our prediction. So we can fill in any holes, get very simple and universally applicable to any marketer. We know not all marketers out there have tons of data. They're not all aggregating their data with data from the marketplace. Some people just collect emails from a landing page or even emails from a trade show or something like that. Email lists come from all different sources, and we wanted to be able to add value to any of those customers.
Very nice. So, Will,
Yeah.
this brings up an area of focus that's kind of been in the news lately. How do you guys handle, or how does this mesh with the whole privacy issue that's kind of being highlighted right now?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. We take data privacy very seriously. So, like I mentioned earlier, I think the consumer is demanding that they have a personalized experience online. And in order for that to happen, there has to be access to at least some degree of consumer data. But I think more than that, what people really want is that their data is secure. And that's really important to us, is taking a data security first approach to what we're doing. And then giving the customer access if they don't want to be included to be removed.
Does Sorter actually house any data, or are you guys just kind of analyzing it?
It's a combination. So we do aggregate data for the purposes of analysis, and then we store what the result of that analysis is on our internal servers.
Okay. What kind of clients are y'all working with currently, and what are some of the results that you've seen?
Right now, we are in our early private betas. So we're working with experimental marketers that see the value in neuromarketing and want to figure out ways to put it into their stack. Some of them are like VC-backed startups. Other ones are more direct to consumer e-commerce. They're all over the board in the small pilot program. But what we're really excited about are the early proof points that we're seeing. This actually works. So in our early proof of concepts, we've seen up to 40% increase in conversion lift. But we think with some of the things that we're working on now, we're going to be able to exceed that. So that said, with our current tests, we're trying to figure out, where does that number either go up or down? Does it work better in different types of marketing actions, or different types of marketing funnels, or for different types of brands? For now, what we've seen is up to 40% increase in conversion lift. So we're very optimistic about the power of what Sorter can do.
That's interesting. Do you guys see any trends, if you have enough clients across categories, but do you see trends based on industry or product type or anything like that, where maybe they have more movers consistently than thinkers?
So I was actually giving a presentation at this event in New York called the New York Tech Alliance, and we demoed the product there. And this is a big tech event. I think like Shutterstock, DigitalOcean, they launched, and we ran a sample data file that we had done through one of our proof of concepts. And one of the audience members asked, oh wow, that list had over 50% motivators. Like, why is that? You typically see that. And a good example to show that the distribution of what your audience is going to change based on the product you were selling. That sample list came from a proof of concept where a company was selling software to marketers. So as you can imagine, marketers tend to be more open-minded, more vision-focused, more creative. So their list reflected that. It over-optimized for marketers. So like, from an example of how you do Sorter for them, it's like, okay, well, if we want to keep putting out content that really appeals to visionaries, some people may say that marketers tend to skew toward creative, but there's this whole push right now toward like growth marketing and performance marketing and programmatic marketing, which are all very data driven. So for that client, we recommend putting out content that also starts to appeal to the more quantitative side of the marketing spectrum.
That's interesting you bring that up, because a lot of this talk has been around, digital types of tactics, I think, but it really influences everything that you do. So like you said, if you learn that motivators, that's going to influence all of your marketing. It's going to influence maybe even your sales team, your customer service team. It's really a comprehensive effect.
Yeah, this way of thinking kind of permeates the entire business. So even post-purchase, if you're selling a product and you want to communicate with that customer afterwards through customer service, there are a lot of ways to use these insights. We were talking with a company, and they were in the healthcare space. And they're like, most of our clients are doctors. We know that. We know they're most likely to be very analytical. And they had hyper optimized all of their landing pages, all of their creative, all of their content around selling to analytical doctors. Like, everything was going to a white paper, going to this and that. That was all very data-driven graphs, charts, numbers. But they said, what we find is that a lot of people that actually research our site aren't doctors. They're the doctor's executive assistants or someone in the administrative part of the office. So if they're doing research and you're showing them content that's going to overwhelm them or may not resonate with them because they're not an analytical doctor, then they might go on to the next company that delivers the message in a way that they understand a little bit better. So we do find right now that brands over optimize sometimes for who they think their customer is, but then likewise, it goes the other way. A lot of marketers tend to be these creative, open-minded, vision-focused types. So they'll produce content or write copy that they think is going to appeal to the customer. In a lot of cases, that becomes very elaborative, vision-focused language. So it's very useful to be mindful of who the audience is, but your own way of thinking, and then kind of make sure you're creating content that appeals to all four ways of thinking.
That's interesting. So where is Sorter in your product roadmap at this point?
We're very excited about our product roadmap. I think from the outside looking in, we're pretty far along, but from the inside looking at ourselves, we're just getting started. There are a lot of things that we can do with this technology to make it just more and more powerful for a brand to provide very resonant experiences. But we're really excited about ways to embed Sorter in the entire customer journey, from acquisition of the customer to post-purchase and retention, from email marketing to user interfaces. So our roadmap is very exciting, but right now we are focused on email and social ad. Another big thing that's coming up in the roadmap is the ability to integrate with your tools. So right now, a marketer would upload their email list, and that's what starts the sorting process.
So what would the experience be like for a brand coming on board with Sorter? What could they expect?
For a brand coming on board with Sorter today, they can expect a very, very white glove approach, I think, to helping them. We understand that neuromarketing as a concept is not well known outside of specific marketing circles. And even if it is known, it's not been used by most marketers out there. So there's an education element that is essential for us to make sure our clients have a positive experience with our platform, and also so that their clients have a positive experience with the content they're receiving. So if a marketer were to sign up with Sorter today, we would educate them on what neuromarketing is, how to apply it, and we would handhold them through a large part of the onboarding process. From a platform standpoint, it's very simple for the marketer. They simply upload their email list, and then the platform does the rest, and we segment it out into our primary categories. We also give them a snapshot of what their entire audience looks like. And based on that, that gives you really good insight into who your current customers are and who you're really resonating with, which helps inform your brand strategy. From there, you can do two things. One, you can say, okay, let's double down on these psychographic segments that we're really resonating with. Or alternatively, let's put out content and ads that are going to help us acquire people from the core psychographic profiles that we're not appealing to right now. And then from a marketing standpoint, you're able to segment out your list. So do you want for this campaign to only target your movers or only target your thinkers, so on and so forth, and export those lists right into whatever content studio you're using, like your MailChimp email account or something like that. And then just along the way, like we're there to help you from a customer success standpoint. It's really important that these campaigns are successful for our customers. It helps us grow and it helps us learn on how to fine tune our algorithms. But our end goal here is that the marketer is, by the end of their onboarding, they know enough about neuromarketing and the principles of using psychology within their marketing that they can start creating their own campaigns. But as much or as little as they need us, they can lend on us for assistance.
Very nice. If we look at the future of Sorter and sort of like your vision for neuromarketing, does this become like a self-learning type of thing? So if we use Sorter as a brand, obviously you're collecting more data, you're more involved in the customer journey. Could it get smarter?
Yes. So Sorter is a constantly evolving product and platform. And the more companies that come on board, the more potential customers that are processed through our platform, the more data that becomes available and we receive access to. All of these things help us to make stronger predictions. The more and more data that we're able to get access to, just the smarter we become. And that's what really excites us, is just getting more and more intelligent with our recommendations, because as those recommendations become more effective and more precise, it makes it even easier for the marketer to implement this.
Very cool. So you mentioned when we talked in our pre-conversation, you have an integration coming with Shopify very shortly. Is that sort of the near-term goal right now?
Shopify is one of the integration partners that we are looking at, and I think that'll be one of our more immediate integrations. It's not one we have now, but that said, if you're on Shopify, you can still get value from Sorter. When we integrate with them is the ability to start tying purchase data to the rest of our data and seeing, does that play a factor? We're not sure. It might. We want to do research around it, and Shopify would open up that door. But right now, for the Shopify store owners out there, we're able to give value to them with just their email list. But Shopify is obviously a massive player in the SMB e-commerce space, and that's a world that I come from personally, and that's a market segment that we really want to add value to. So Shopify is definitely on the roadmap. We're very excited about the types of integrations we'll have leading into the end of the year and into next year as our integration strategy starts to ramp up.
Awesome. So what kind of brands and companies would you say could really benefit from Sorter? Who should come check you guys out?
Yes, that's a great question. So we think any brand should come check us out, but you're right that there are some that we think are going to get even more value from using us. And those are really brands that are targeting the consumer directly. So not so much B2B clients, although what we're building can apply across the spectrum. We're really optimizing for selling direct to consumer. And within that, purchases that may not be like a life decision purchase. So perhaps not using it to sell a home, although it would probably work. We're more focused on brands that are going B2C and they're selling online in most cases.
Very cool. What about brands who they have a presence on e-commerce, they sell online, so they have they're going to have a database of emails and customer profiles. But what about like a larger company who also has like a brick and mortar side of their business? Have you guys had any discussions about how you could potentially help all those retailers who are closing their doors and they're trying to figure out how to make that whole digital and in-store experience more seamless?
Absolutely. That's a great analysis. And that's really a big pain point for legacy retailers right now that have made all of their income historically on brick and mortar, but now the consumer is demanding online. So while our core focus are these online brands that are direct to consumer and are by their very nature of being born online, it's in their DNA to be data-driven online marketers. That's who we're really optimizing for. Have to invent themselves and rebirth online essentially, and they're trying to figure out this e-commerce strategy. So we think that's a really big opportunity both for the retailer and for us to service that retailer. It's like, hey, we are closing our brick and mortar locations. We're trying to invent online. We are maybe a few steps behind the companies that are just started online. How do we start converting our customers from brick and mortar shoppers to online shoppers? How do we speak to them? How do we stay relevant? So outside of just the born online direct to consumer e-commerce brands, we definitely see brick and mortar brands as a big opportunity, and as well as any challenger brands that are maybe not market leaders, but by that they have to be very experimental and innovative in order to stay competitive in ever-changing markets. So we're also very interested in like challenger brands that are just trying to do something really new and hopefully rings up the ladder.
Nice. Where can everybody go to learn about Sorter, kind of get started with you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the best way to get a really, I don't want to say deep dive, but a deeper dive on what we're building at Sorter is our Instagram. We're targeting online marketers. So we thought Instagram was the best place to do that. If they go to @Sorter Labs on Instagram, it really tells the story of what we're doing and where we're going. Outside of that, to join our waitlist to sign up for our next pilot cohort, they can just go to sorter.com, SORTER.com. And they can also email me directly anytime. My email is WMB as in boy @sorter.com. So WMB@sorter.com.
Very cool. Well, hey, thanks for coming on the show, Will.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.